It's Monday, which means another Mock Draft Monday. The interesting thing about this year in the NFL is a lot of teams are really bad, which means a lot of teams are competing for that top spot in the draft. But what's interesting about this year and how it kind of differs from past years, this draft class overall is not especially strong, and it's especially noticeable at the quarterback position. There are a lot of teams that need quarterback, talking about the Giants, Titans, Browns, Raiders, maybe even the Dolphins with Tua's health stuff up in the air, even though I get the contract thing. The Jets, the Saints, maybe even the Panthers. There are a lot of teams that need quarterback. Here's the thing. There are only so many quarterbacks that are even worth taking a chance on in the first round. It's maybe only about a one quarterback class. Shedeur Sanders appears to be the best QB in the class right now. And then you have maybe Cam Ward could be a first round pick. Outside of that, I don't really know who's going to end up going this high. Milroe has potential, but the play hasn't really been there. Garrett Nussmeier is not really a first-round prospect, and I don't really think anybody else is. Not Carson Beck at this point. He's been terrible in 2024. Quinn Ewers is always up and down. I say this in every single mock draft because I have to, because I'm going to get a million comments about it anyway. We need a quarterback. Take a QB. It just doesn't go down the list. Oh, quarterback, you need a quarterback. Let's just take whatever quarterback's there. Let's just get a quarterback off the board. We need a quarterback. Draft someone that plays the quarterback position in college. This is the entire mock draft. We need a quarterback. We're not ever going to ignore quarterback. We got to go QB. This is an annoying start to the video, I know. But, guys, it's not taking a quarterback. It's getting the quarterback. It's getting the player, not just the position. And that's more evident with QB than any other position. This video is sponsored by Underdog. Had an incredibly bad beat yesterday. Joe Mixon scored a first half rushing touchdown. Had a great read on David Montgomery being well under his rushing yard number of 57.5. But then I had CJ Stroud higher, 235.5 passing yards, and drops and mistakes at the end of the game. He finished just a few yards short. That was the difference between losing $20 and winning $130. I was devastated. But tonight, we bounce back. Underdog's a great place to play daily fantasy sports. They have a number of different promos you can do, like vulture protection to protect your running back in case a different running back comes in on the goal line and punches one in. But today, I'm rocking with Kyren Williams, higher 86.5 rushing yards, Tua Tagovailoa, lower 32.5 passing attempts, and Tyreek Hill, higher 75.5 receiving yards. They're just in good matchups against the other team here on Monday Night Football. If you're like, oh man, I didn't get to watch the video in time, or coming back and watching it after it's already out for Monday Night Football, I tweet these out. So follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/BengalYouTube. Use code Bengal on Underdog. And I've been reading it pretty well lately. Got a little bit unlucky yesterday for Sunday Night Football. We're going to bounce back with Monday Night Football. Big win tonight. Hopefully these end up hitting. Use code Bengal on Underdog. And thank you to Underdog for sponsoring this video. One rant to start. Anyway, not doing trades per usual. And I am going to continue to go with the trend of Travis Hunter going number 1 overall. It's tough for me to wrap my mind around the possibility, the potential of a corner or even a receiver going at number 1 overall. And I don't know that Travis Hunter ends up going this high in the draft. I'm not sure he ends up being the first player off the board. But what I do know is pound for pound, he is the best player in the draft. He's arguably the best corner. He can make an impact on offense. He is an incredible talent. And for a team like the Jags that could use an upgrade at corner, could use more playmakers even on offense. I know they need offensive line. This would be a potential trade down spot as well for that reason. But Travis Hunter is just a special type of talent. Getting everything that he could bring to the table might make him the first player off the board, which is bizarre considering the position that he plays, or positions, but it's a possibility. And I think we could see 2 Colorado players as the first off the board in that scenario, even if it's, a different team drafting first that might take a quarterback. I think Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in the draft. Again, it's not an especially strong class. The Giants desperately need QB. I get that. I don't always have them going quarterback because I don't think that a bunch of QBs are going to go in the first round this year, especially, not inside the top 10 the way we've seen in years past. The players, they're just not there. And we're getting to the end of the college football season. How many games left do these guys have to really elevate their stock? Not that many. Maybe 4 or 5 if you're lucky, right? I think we've played maybe 10 games for most college teams. It will alternate with bye weeks, but, I think that we kind of know about these guys. There's going to be a little bit of movement, but I don't think this is going to be a heavy quarterback first round. I think you might see 2 or 3. You know, teams always take chances on QBs. I get that. But I don't know that the Titans would just say, hey, we're going to take a shot on Cam Ward here. He's clearly the best player available. That's not necessarily the case, right? But I do think Cam Ward will end up being the second QB off the board. Still don't really know how I feel about the other QBs in this class. And Ward has potential. I know he's very raw as a player, putting up great numbers at Miami, though. But I think the Titans might opt to go in a different direction, and they need more playmakers. They need help on the offensive line. But let's get who's ever playing quarterback there, a big-time receiver in Teteroa McMillan from Arizona. Big size, big playmaking ability, great hands, very good after the catch considering his size as well. Not exactly a burner by any means, but one of the best receivers in this class for sure, if not the best. The thing that gets a little bit weird for me with this receiver class is it's not very good either. They're okay players, but is Teteroa McMillan a top 3 player in the draft type of talent? I'm not necessarily sure that he is. So things get a little bit weird, and they'll continue to be weird here as we get to the Browns. You know, I think this is probably a team that would consider drafting a QB. Deshaun Watson's contract situation is still extremely bad for Cleveland considering how bad of a player he is, and he's locked in. That being said, though, you could take a QB here and look to develop him. Maybe Jameis Winston 6th round, and he's a starter next year. Maybe Deshaun Watson gets back. I don't know. But QB should absolutely be in consideration for Cleveland. Is that going to be the route that they go? Because they do need offensive line. I think we're going to go O-line instead. Because you're still locked in with Watson a little bit. You could potentially get out of it. But at the same time, you know, it would be extremely expensive to do so. And when he was healthy, even though he was absolutely terrible, the Browns kept sending him out there each week to start because of that financial commitment that they made. Let's go ahead and think about them going with the tackle, though. Kelvin Banks Jr. will be the first one off the board for me here. Could potentially be Cameron Williams. He got injured this past week, so his future may be a little bit up in the air. A lot of these top players in the class have been injured as well, which really muddies the waters about, you know, which order you're going to see these players go off the board. Will Campbell, I think, is going to move inside the guard. Ariante Ursary, you know, in the mix maybe, but I think Kelvin Banks Jr. has got a pretty good chance to be the first tackle off the board. Also could move inside the guard, but I think there's a decent chance he sticks at tackle. Might be a plug-and-play left tackle situation. Jed Wills maybe not going to be back in Cleveland. So Kelvin Banks Jr. makes sense there for Cleveland as he keeps the orange on in one way, shape, or form. Raiders at 5. Think this could be a quarterback, though. Think they're probably a little bit more desperate for QB rather than Cleveland. But, you know, the Raiders' QB situation's really bad. They've had Aiden O'Connell out there. They've had Desmond Ridder play. They have had Gardner Minshew play. Cam Ward gives you potential. He's probably not ready to go tomorrow, but he's got pretty good improvisational ability. He's got a pretty good arm, and at times has looked really good for Miami this season. So you got potential there, and the Raiders roll the dice on Cam Ward. Dolphins at number 6. Let's go Mason Graham here. You know, you lose Christian Wilkins. I know they could upgrade the offensive line for sure, but Mason Graham's one of the best players in the draft at a really important position. You know, interior defensive line continues to be valued more and more and more as, you know, the NFL continues to go on. Over the past couple of years, it's been especially notable. And we've seen guys like Dexter Lawrence and Chris Jones and Aaron Donald be some of the best and most valuable players in the league at their position. I think Mason Graham's got the potential to rise into being one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. Quinnen Williams, I mean, there are a number that we can name, but Graham's really good. And the Dolphins really have not replaced Christian Wilkins in any capacity. Mason Graham would be a really nice upgrade. And that defensive line has potential, especially on the edge moving forward, but injuries have, again, hurt the Dolphins with guys like Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb being, you know, are missing a lot of games over the past couple of years. Patriots on the clock at number 7. Let's just go with the best offensive lineman maybe in the entire draft, and Will Campbell. Is he a guard? Probably, but he could potentially stick a tackle. It's just the short arms is a really big concern for that being a reality. But just upgrade on the offensive line, play him somewhere. They need an upgrade at guard. They need an upgrade at tackle. I think when you have the versatility of some guys like Mike Onwenu, who have been really good players for you at guard and then at tackle, you know, Will Campbell could be a similar deal. Play him at guard, play him at tackle. He's been a great left tackle for LSU. It's just the arm length. You don't see anybody with his reported arm length. You don't see anybody in the NFL playing tackle with 32-inch arms. You just don't see it. Now, maybe the measurements are wrong. Maybe a team tries him out there and he can, hang, but it's going to be a tough task. However, you got to protect Drake May. Will Campbell, I think, will help you do that from LSU. Jets at number 8. The Jets could use a quarterback. I mean, every time you watch the Jets, this offense is terrible. And I really think a big problem is with the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a shell of his former self. That doesn't mean he can't have good games or make good plays, but on a down-to-down basis, this is not the same guy. He is legitimately not very good anymore. It's tough to watch because he was the best quarterback in the league for a while, and he definitely is not anymore. Now, trading for Davante Adams does make things pretty interesting, but I think the Jets are almost going to be forced to keep going with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback. I don't think they're going to pull a Packers on Aaron Rodgers. I think that they're going to be like, all right, our best possible chance is to keep going with Rodgers and Davante Adams. I think their window is pretty small, so they're going to look to upgrade and get the best player that can help them win now. Now, looking at their actual team and their team needs, I don't really think they're going to need corner. Maybe I'm not up to date on some of the contract situations. I think their pass rush could be improved. Although looking at it, DJ Reed is going to be a free agent. He could definitely test the market. And with Will Johnson being on the board, maybe the Jets do pull the trigger and draft a corner, especially when they can play on the boundary. And then you have two of the best young corners in football, probably. Will Johnson, I think, is going to end up being a stud. Now, he's got great size. It's going to be tough to compete with those corners because you have Sauce Gardner, that's 6'3", 6'4". You have Will Johnson, that's 6'2". Yeah, those would be a pretty good pairing on the boundary. And then you have, of course, depending on who stays in New York, one of the better slot corners in the league. Saints on the clock at number 9. I think this is a team that could consider quarterback. I'm not sure we're going to see one here. Their defense is really, really, really bad, and they definitely need an upgraded pass rush. And lucky for New Orleans, there are a bunch of really good pass rushers in this class. And I think that Abdul Carter is going to get a decent chance to be the first one off the board. I think James Pierce will be in that conversation. Nick Scorton potentially as well. Mykel Williams. It's going to be really interesting to see who the first edge rusher off the board is. And I'm genuinely not sure. I think if I had to put money on it, I would say the upside of Abdul Carter or James Pierce makes them seem like a likely choice. But you could say the same thing about Mykel Williams with his freak size. And Nick Scorton's also about like 20 years old and has been highly productive. So you can make a really good case for either of those guys. I know people don't love Abdul Carter from what I've seen in my comment section, but he's got freak athleticism and he's still developing as a true pass rusher. This was a guy that was playing linebacker, last year and his entire collegiate career that's really just finding his footing as a true edge this season and has really improved as the year has gone on. I think he's got a decent chance to be the first one off the board, and I'm going to go Abdul Carter here. Again, who knows what the order is going to be for these edge rushers going off the board, but I think Carter's got a decent chance. And the Saints, their defense is so bad, and that pass rush needs to improve in a big way. I think Abdul Carter helps you do that. At number 10, keeping in the NFC South, we have the Carolina Panthers. Panthers' defense is also really, really bad. And I think we can go back to the edge rusher well here and go back-to-back edge players. And it's, again, same type of conversation. Which one do you want? I think James Pierce, another guy that as SEC play has started to play better and better and better, and already has freak burst off the line, great get off, and was extremely productive last season. Tennessee, edge rusher into the NFL for the Carolina Panthers, who desperately need to improve their pass rush. As we get to the Cowboys at number 11, I just think that Ashton Genty continues to be a really good fit for them. You look at the players that are probably going to be available. I think receiver makes sense for the Cowboys as well. But I think that Ashton Genty is going to be one of the higher-rated players on the Cowboys board. He's one of the best players in this draft, and I do think running back is worth taking in the first round. You see how productive Zeke was in his first few years with the Cowboys? That's what you're drafting him for. It's not about the extension. It's about what he's going to provide you within the first 4 or even 5 years of that contract with a first-year, fifth-year option. When you first-round, fifth-year option, right? So Drafting a running back in the first round makes sense. We're seeing Bijan Robinson emerge now in Atlanta now that they're actually giving him the football now that Arthur Smith is gone. Genty could be an extremely good player for the Cowboys, as much as that would pain me as a Giants fan. Genty is such a good player, and the Cowboys need a boost at running back in a big way. When Micah Parsons is healthy, their defense can play. They're pretty good, and he's going to be there for a long time. I know they need to upgrade the interior of that defensive line, and could even get another edge rusher in the mix as well with DeMarcus Lawrence getting older. But I think that health, really, if they got Deron Bland back, and maybe Trevon Diggs playing near an all-pro level, this is a good defense. I think you take Genty here at number 11, and you feel pretty good about it. It's a running back, but running backs are valuable. Running backs are valuable, especially with more too high, defenses now playing too high shells, just asking you, begging for you to run the ball because they say we're not going to give up the deep ball. The NFL is changing. Running backs are going to be, again, more valuable than ever. Colts at number 12. I like the idea of Malachi Starks. I think he's such a good player. Does the NFL finally value a safety? They haven't. They let guys like Brian Branch drop into the middle of the second round. These nickel corner safety types. Starks is so good. But I know the Colts also really need corner. We're going to go Malachi Starks. I just think he's such a talented player. I think he's probably one of the best 10 players in the class. He went into the year with a ton of hype. He's played pretty well. The Georgia defense is seemingly always going to be good because they continue to recruit freaks like Malachi Starks. I think he's worth a top 15 selection as we get to the Bengals at 13. Now, they've got a very interesting predicament. Are they going to keep T. Higgins, or are they going to keep Trey Hendrickson? I think it will end up being one or the other. So, do they value the big-time receiver to complement Jamar Chase, or do they value one of the better pass rushers in the league? And that's what Trey Hendrickson has become. I think they might try and keep Trey Hendrickson. I think last time I said maybe Hendrickson could walk, and he certainly could. But with how impactful he is on that defense, I think you definitely try and retain him. And maybe you draft a receiver. And Luther Burden seems like a pretty good option. For a lot of the same reasons you like Jamar Chase, you like Luther Burden. There are similar players in some ways, very different in others. But Burden, like Chase, is very good after the catch, has some pretty good speed. But Burden can make an impact in the slot more so than Jamar Chase, who is a big-time winner on the outside. Not that Chase couldn't do it in the slot, but he doesn't need to. The way Burden can really impact the game, I think, would be a really nice addition to this offense. Like, looking at their actual receiving core, I don't know what Jermaine Burton is going to be long-term. I don't know what Andre Yosivas is going to be long-term. But Burden, I think, can be a true weapon and one of the better receiver twos in the league and would be a good fit there in Cincinnati for those reasons. Bucks at 14. I don't think they need tight end. I think Cade Otton's going to be there for the long haul. See if that ends up being the case. But they desperately need to upgrade their pass rush as well. And that's the case of a lot of teams that we've talked about so far. But it continues to be true. And I think we're going to get Nick Scorton off the board here from Texas A&M. The Purdue transfer has been highly productive. One of the younger players in this draft class, I believe. Great size as well. 285 pounds. Big player. Big potential. And really could impact this Bucs defense in a big way. Seahawks at number 15. I'm tempted to go linebacker here. I really am. But at the same time, watching this offensive line play is painful. And I think you could absolutely go with an interior offensive lineman and try to upgrade one of the worst units in the league in some ways. I mean, the offensive line is really tough to watch. And I still think that Jonah Sava-Inaya will be maybe the first interior offensive lineman off the board, depending on what you think about Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. I think he's got a pretty good chance. He could also stick at tackle, though, and Seahawks could also use a tackle, at right tackle especially. So it's an interesting team to mock for. I do want to get Jahad Campbell back in the first round. I think he's going to be the first linebacker off the board. I think he will end up being a first-round pick. Just which team's going to take him? It's an interesting conversation. I think the Bears would be pretty disappointed about Sava-Inaya off the board at this point because they also need interior offensive line. Yes, you could try to upgrade the defense, but I think guard is going to be a really important position for them to draft. Just, is this a Tyler Booker spot? Is this, are you drafting the highly athletic Emory Jones, who's not played especially well at tackle this year, to move him inside to guard? I think there's potential for that. I mean, you look at right guard, Emory Jones, I feel like could be a pretty good fit there. I also think you could consider tackle with this pick. I mean, Cam Williams from Texas definitely has potential. He's got great size, doesn't have a ton of experience, but I think is definitely in play to be the first true tackle off the board. Bears could do that. Josh Simmons from Ohio State was playing really well before his injury. Let's go with Cameron Williams from Texas. Highly athletic, big-time potential, and the NFL loves the measurables. It doesn't get a lot better than Cameron Williams, who's 6'5", 335, and continues to get better and better and better. He has good tape in some games, especially against Michigan. He was great. So, I think he's somebody that is only going to get better, and the NFL values that type. So I think he could definitely go in the top half of the first round. At number 17, have the LA Rams. Probably would have heavily considered Cameron Williams at this spot as well. Could also still consider a tackle, but they're so weak at corner, and this class has some pretty good corners in it. We're going to go with Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. Unfortunately, big-time injury in 2024, but the tape that he put on display already this season and in 2023 especially was really, really good. Maybe the injury drops him a bit, but the Rams have a true lacking of not only depth, but top-tier talent at corner, and Benjamin Morrison, I think, can help that out. 49ers at number 18. And, I think that tackle is a need-ish, but maybe not as much as PFF would indicate here. Some people say, oh, they don't need that. I didn't make these. This is on Pro Football Focus. I didn't make any of the team needs. I don't really know that tackle is that big of a need for San Francisco because Trent Williams continues to play at a high level. You could take someone to develop over time. Trent Williams was not going to be there forever, but they've also got good play from right tackle as well this year. So I think instead of looking to replace like Colton McKivitz, we're going to go at corner. We're going to go Savone Revel from ECU. Again, another guy that got injured, is missing the rest of 2024, but the tape has been good, very good the past couple of seasons. He was someone that really got on the radar this offseason for me, coming into 2024. Guys like Dane Brugler were hyping him up. It was kind of like a big lead, and Revel's got elite size and athleticism, and because he got injured so early on in the year, he's going to be ready to go. Maybe for rookie minicamp, maybe for OTAs, but definitely for the preseason and regular season week 1. And the 49ers could use better corners. Revel has big-time potential. I'm not going to say Sauce Gardner, but it's a similar mold of elite size and athleticism with great length. The long arms are so important playing corner. And I think he could play a pretty big impact early on. He's not much of a tackler, but neither is Sauce Gardner. So there's some similarities there. Broncos at 19. This is a very interesting team. And I have been receiver here a lot. I'm going to mix it up today, and we're going to go interior defensive line. And I think one of the biggest risers this year has been Oregon's Derek Harmon. He's been a really, really good pass rusher, and the Broncos need to improve that unit. And I think Harmon is going to end up being a first-round pick. He pretty much goes higher and higher in every mock draft that I do. This is the first time I've had him in the top 20. But I think that's a realistic landing spot for him. I do like Kenneth Grant. I like some of these interior defensive linemen, although not all of them have played as well as I would have hoped this year in the case of like Deion Walker and Tyleik Williams, although Shamar Turner may be one to look out for. But even more than that, Shamar Stewart, another guy to look out for. Someone like LT Overton has the inside-outside flexibility that, depending on the team, I think those guys would be really, really good fits. You're talking about probably, they could be 3 techs, but they could also be, 3-4 defensive ends. So I think Overton, Shamar Stewart, these guys could play 3 tech, could play 5 tech, and could be pretty good in those roles. So depending on the team, these guys would maybe be better fits. But Stewart rushes off the edge, and he's a really, really good player for that A&M defense. A&M's got, a ferocious pass rush. If you have Cameron Williams and Kelvin Banks both healthy, the A&M Texas matchup at the end of the year in College Station is going to be one to watch, because 2 really good pass rushers that could be first-round picks against 2 really good tackles that could be first-round picks. We'll see what direction that ends up going in. Texans at number 20. Well, Joe Mixon's playing at an otherworldly level right now, and their O-line is not. You watched the game last night against Detroit. It's certainly very, very easy to see. I mean, left guard's been a disaster. Kenyon Green was terrible. Kendrick Green is not good. They need a lineman that doesn't have the last name Green with the first name K. I'm sensing that's a pretty bad trend at left guard. But, I mean, what guard are you going to take? It's just not especially great at this point. I think Tyler Booker does have a chance to be a first-round pick. Outside of that, I don't know if anyone, unless you're taking a tackle to move them inside, like Emory Jones, for example. A lot of these guys kind of expected to move inside. I'm going to go Tyler Booker here. I think he's got a chance to be a first-round pick, or at least the first true guard off the board. A lot of these tackles, again, expected to move inside, but the Texans' guards are just not good. I mean, you need to upgrade that interior to give C.J. Stroud a chance. Falcons at 21. It's always about upgrading the pass rush. I think I've gone Mykel Williams here in this spot before. I like the fit. It's a Georgia edge rusher staying in state. I had that happening a lot last year. It did not happen. The Falcons continue to ignore their pass rush, and it's bad for that reason. Please upgrade it. Mykel Williams has some of the highest potential in the draft to get him here at 21, and you have incredible size and versatility, and he is like the modern-day edge. He's like 6'5" or 6'6", super long arms, playing at about 270 pounds, can move inside, can move outside. I think Trayvon Walker is a decent comparison to what you're getting with Mykel Williams. Maybe not number one overall player off the board type of talent, but he's really good. Has dealt with some injury stuff this year, though. Cardinals at 22. This is going to be the linebacker spot for me. Now, the Cardinals go a number of different directions with this pick, but based off of some of the players going off the board, I think this is a really good spot to take the first linebacker, and Jahad Campbell is a freak. He is a linebacker with sideline-to-sideline type of range, can play in coverage, but is 6'3", 244. That is a big, big linebacker that can move. So he can be a thumper on the interior, but also has the athleticism to work in space. He is such a talented player, very good coming downhill, and I think the Cardinals could use an upgraded linebacker. You know, this is a team that's drafted linebacker a lot in the first round, and they keep not knowing what to do with these guys. It's like you think you'd have a plan, maybe it doesn't work out, but they keep drafting guys that, are they an edge rusher? Are they a linebacker? Are they something else? Like Isaiah Simmons, like Zaven Collins. And it did work out with Collins when they ended up moving him off the edge. He was pretty good last year. But Jahad Campbell is a true Mike linebacker. I think he goes in and plays a big impact on an Arizona defense that could use some help. They've been very good overall as a team this year. Their offense is cooking. This is a fun team to watch. They're going to be a team to watch coming out of the NFC for sure. Like, I know they haven't had a lot of recent playoff success, but it would not be shocking to me if the Cardinals made a run into the playoffs. Like if they, win a wild card game and maybe even win a divisional game, and I could see the Cardinals making the NFC Championship, honestly, depending on who was in front of them. They're a really, really solid team in what appears to be kind of a weak NFC, where the Lions seem to be easily the best. But outside of that, I don't trust the Eagles. The Vikings, maybe. Darnold's play is starting to fall off a little bit. With the Commanders, you're trusting a not-so-great defense at times, and a rookie quarterback as great as Jaden Daniels has played. Kind of came back down to earth a little bit on Sunday. And then the Packers, that who knows what they're going to do. So, I mean, the Cardinals could be a team to watch in the NFC. We'll see what happens with that. Chargers at 23. Let's get a tight end off the board. Tyler Warren's played about as well as anybody this year, and definitely could be in play to be the first tight end off the board and a first-round pick. Yes, it would be tough for Jim Harbaugh maybe to ignore Michigan tight end Colson Loveland, but Warren is a better prospect and can play in line. He's 6'6", 260. Colson Loveland is maybe more of like a power, big slot type of player, whereas Warren can be an actual inline blocking tight end who can be a real menace in the passing game. And that's a fun combination with Justin Herbert, who's played really, really well this year as the season's gone on. Packers at 24. I'm going Kenneth Grant. Just seems to be sticking out as maybe one of the best players available. The Packers could use an upgrade on the interior. I like Kenny Clark, but he's getting older. Devontae Wyatt, maybe not a super great first-round pick up to this point. You could go with a versatile edge inside type guy like Shamar Stewart, like we talked about, or LT Overton, but Kenneth Grant, I think, makes sense here at 24. Commanders at 25. Edge continues to be a position of need for them. You know, you lose Chase Young, you lose Montez Sweat. You're comfortable doing that, but you really haven't replaced those guys. So getting an edge rusher in the mix, I think, makes a ton of sense. And we're going to go with Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. He's got very big size for an edge rusher at 6'6", 290, but can move. Is a force to be reckoned with off the edge. He's been great this season, and he has also high prospect pedigree. I want to say he was a high 5-star type of prospect coming out of high school, and he's finding his own here in 2024. I had to check the calendar to make sure what year it was. That was stupid. Ravens at 26, they've got like the worst secondary in the league. To me, I think it's got to be somebody to improve that group, but the guys that are available, I'm not exactly stoked on from what I've seen so far. And I haven't really done a deep dive on the corners. Decario Davis, I feel like, would be a good fit. Jahdae Barron's played great this year. I just don't know that he's a first-round type of player. Like, if Brian Branch is not going to go in the first round, I don't think Jahdae Barron will. I know it's a different year. Barron's played all over. He's played the nickel. He's played on the boundary a lot this year, and he's a good player. I mean, he's probably my favorite Texas Longhorn of the last 4 years. I love Jahdae Barron, but I just don't know that he's going to be a first-round pick if a guy like Brian Branch isn't, as I mentioned. But the fact that he's playing the boundary this year might up that value and sneak him into the first round. Hook 'em horns. Jahdae Barron. Absolutely love the guy. He is such a talented player. I don't know that he's quite to the level of Brian Branch, but the reason I keep making that comparison is maybe not a super athletic, but really instinctive DB. And, I mean, that's why the Ravens maybe like Kyle Hamilton, who's played so well for them. But Barron can move all over and maybe could even stick on the boundary. He's been very good this year there for Texas, and he's been a big part of why they have an elite defense. Steelers at 27. I'd like to go receiver. I really would. I know the Steelers don't do it, but maybe they do it. I'd like Isaiah Bond is a really good player. When healthy, he is a playmaker. Electric speed, solid route runner. Alabama transfer has been very good at times for Texas this year, but has dealt with some injuries. But the Steelers, man, you need to upgrade that group really, really badly. Like, Roman Wilson's been a healthy scratch. George Pickens is good, but what else do you have? You need more. Isaiah Bond can really stretch the field, and that would create opportunities underneath for everybody. And he's a big play waiting to happen. Vikings at 28. I love what Aaron Jones has been able to do for the Vikings this year, but I think you look to the future. And when looking at running back, I love Amarion Hampton. Quinshon Judkins is good, but it's tough to find a better running back this year outside of Ashton Genty than Iowa's Caleb Johnson. He's another guy with very good size, 6 foot, 225, that can really move. And if you have not seen what Caleb Johnson has done this season, he has made the Iowa offense competent because he has been a dominant player. He's averaging over 7 yards per carry. He's got over 1,300 yards right now and 20 rushing touchdowns. 20. Has also added 109 yards and a touchdown through the air. This is a near first-round player. He's been productive. He's athletic. He is incredibly talented, and I think has a chance to be a first-round pick. And I know there are a lot of Vikings fans in the state of Iowa. They might love this. Eagles at 29. It's going to be an edge rusher probably. LT Overton makes sense for me. The Eagles need to improve in that area, and it's also what Howie Roseman loves to do. Take edge rushers, take defensive linemen in the first round. They're extremely valuable. LT Overton definitely is worth taking there at 29. Bills at 30. Could we go to the interior here? Linebacker also a big need. However, with Jahad Campbell off the board, I'm not sure that this is a linebacker. Like, Jalen Walker, I think, ends up being a first-round pick, but maybe not to the Bills. It's a possibility. You could play him off ball sometimes and have him as a rush player, could move him into the edge. I've actually talked myself into it. I'm going to go Jalen Walker here. He's been great off the edge this season, but is athletic enough to play in space at times. He's 6'2", 245. That could be a valued asset as a blitzer, but also somebody that plays like a Sam linebacker type role. So I kind of talked myself into that one for Buffalo. It's maybe not the exact type of linebacker they need, but he's a good player that, you know, when you look at the Bills, how long is Von Miller going to be productive off the edge for the future? Walker does make some sense. And we're going to go back to edge here with the Lions at 31. To me, it's going to be their most, their biggest position of need. And I mean, Princely Umanmielen has played pretty well of late. He was a big factor in their win over Georgia. Donovan Ezaraku's been dominant this year. I've gone the Jack Sawyer pairing to the Lions quite a bit. Landon Jackson's got some freak athleticism. Kyle Kennard's had a great season. This is a solid edge group. It's just who's going to get in the first round here. I'm going to show some love to Princely Umanmielen. He'll end up being like a third-round pick maybe, just because I have him here in the first round. But he's a really talented player and was, you know, a crowned jewel of the transfer portal this past season coming out of Florida. He maybe could have snuck into the first or second round if he had declared, but he decides to transfer to Ole Miss. And again, he's been pretty good there this year and was a big factor in that win over Georgia. And the Lions need help off the edge. I think Princely Umanmielen could definitely be the help off the edge. And finishing things out with the Chiefs at 32. I like the idea of going tight end here. I could also see tackle. And even with the injury, I'm going to get Josh Simmons into the first round. I think he's probably a first-round talent. And the Chiefs just constantly seeming to need tackle. Every single year, they can't figure out a way to get one. Josh Simmons maybe could be a starter at left tackle of the future. Like, you got some young players there that could potentially develop. I don't know what the future holds for Kingsley Suamataia, but I know that really both tackle spots could potentially be upgraded. So Josh Simmons enters the fold, enters the mix. This is my mock draft for November 11th of 2024. We'll see how things change, but I guess I'll probably see you next Monday, as the top of the draft order is going to continue to change in a big way every week. All of these teams have 2 wins. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens on a week-to-week basis, how things change. But, you know, I could definitely see a lot more players getting into the top 10 than what I currently have there. Let's see what happens, but I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.